Alright, fellow sleuths, time to take a look at the second episode of the day, which is The Siege of the Unseen Specter. Nancy comes downstairs to find Carson making dinner for her birthday, which she points out is her fake birthday that her parents put on her fake birth certificate. She doesn't feel celebrating. She doesn't feel like celebrating herself and warns her father that he better not have invited anyone. She hopes her to find Detective Tumor arresting her for contempt of court, as she provided false information to a police detective. She wishes herself a happy birthday. They arrive at the station where a man is panicking as he got a message that his town was under emergency. Another one must have filed a police report for a public dispute. Nancy's ambushed by Brendan Schmidt of the Horseshoe Bay Ledger. He questions her what it's like to finally be held accountable for her actions. John relates to get his credential just as Nick and Ryan arrive. She tells them that she's under arrest for contempt of court. They got an email that their meeting for Nick's youth program was for tonight. She finds out that everyone was mysteriously brought to the police station. At the Claw, Bess says to George works to find Mary Clark. George uses a mahjong set to attract her ancestors for help. Ace collapses when he awakens as George's Aunt May, who criticizes her for wearing her hair that way. At the station, Nancy notices the camera color is different as it's new. She answers the phone and learns that the precinct is on lockdown and nobody will enter or leave. He wants to speak to Nancy Drew. He answers the phone and learns that the precinct is on lockdown, nobody will enter or leave. He wants to speak to Nancy Drew. If anyone tries to escape, there'll be consequences. He touches the door handle and is electrocuted. Nancy asks who the person is and what they want. Learns their name is the Arbiter, and they want her to figure out who knows what happened to Dolores Barrett. The longer it takes, the worse it will be. Nancy helps Tamara with his hand, and he asks how she got out of her cuffs. Meanwhile, the station learns that a cell jammer was used to lock cell phones and landlines down, while the back door is also electrified. The radios are sabotaged and the windows are blacked out. One of the women panics, so an officer escorts her away. Nancy wants to get an ambulance for tomorrow and she goes to meet with the Arbiter the next time he makes contact. She asks who Dolores Barrett is and learns she was a missing person case that Fraser and Hampton worked in 2013. This is the case that made him leave the force and join the town council. Dolores was last seen in Horseshoe Bay and vanished. Her car was found in the bottom of a ravine and they thought wild animals ate her body. Nancy says recall the event as Rose Turnbell went missing the same week. The girl found Nancy behind a staircase. The girl Nancy found behind a staircase. Rose got all the attention. Dolores was forgotten. To get the case file, Nick notes that she was a black woman who went missing the same time as the young white girl, so she never had a chance. At the Claw, Bess and George ask for May's help in finding Mary. George explains the situation, but Aunt May is bitter with her niece. She asks George to bring her reading glasses and then she'll find Mary. Nancy interviews Brandon about Dolores as he was the last person to see her alive. He missed having dinner that night, but only noticed her because she was drunk, so when he heard she drove off her RV and it tracked. Nancy and Nick push for more, but Brandon assures someone will notice they're missing. Ryan notices dripping water, and seconds later, the Arbiter releases water through the vents and threatens to electrocute the floor if they don't solve the case in 1 hour. Tamara shouts that he made his point and asks him to turn off the water so they can work, and the Arbiter obliges. Tamara is dizzy but is adamant about solving the case. Aunt May pushes George to get out of Horseshoe Bay and asks her to put the glasses on her like she used to. She didn't need them, but didn't feel herself without them. Nancy and Nick bring photos in an evidence box to Tamura. As they comb through it, they find that her car had red paint on her bumper from Hit and Run. The officer says that like Dolores went missing, Ryan was arrested for a DUI in a red Porsche. They confront Ryan, who does recall the night very clearly. Nancy tells him when and where he was arrested, to which he was in mandatory therapy per his father's request. His father's brother died of alcoholism, so he was forced into therapy. He doesn't remember being pulled over or just going to therapy and the yacht club before being arrested. Nancy rolls out that Ryan did it as Dolores was at the restaurant 2 hours after Ryan was arrested. Brandon asks if she's sure about Everett's involvement in the Boney Scott. Ryan tells Nancy that he's not that guy anymore, which she knows. Tamara asks Nick the deal between them, and if he's why she recanted her testimony. Nick tells her to refocus on the missing black woman that was ignored for 6 years. He The episode crimes against black women were underreported, investigated, and solved. If she were white, more people might have asked about her or found her. Tamora wasn't there then, and Nick notes he's here now. Nancy puts up the board as she wants justice for Dolores, so she denied that for Bashir and other 12 men. Ryan said Dolores was drunk just as Nick brings her a card from Mitzi's Realty with information on the back, such as insurance. In the photo, Mitzi's leaning against a red car. Next, Mitzi about it, she denies it, but then says that Dolores hit her. They were coming out of the restaurant at the same time when Dolores hit her, tried to pay her off, and they got agitated and left. Arbiter says they have a problem as Carson is outside, and if he reaches the door, he'll die, but won't be the last. He allows her to make a call. She calls Carson angrily tells him to go home. Mrs. George YMA calls her Shaolin, and George tells her that it means a little lazy. When she did something slowly or wrong, she thought it would motivate her. George wasn't motivated back then. Carson President tells him Nancy's being held hostage and they need to help her. Carson, Bess, and George pull up to the station where Carson explains that Goldilocks is a code name for a game they used to play. It means to pay attention to the third thing I'm about to say. A twisted candle was an old case of hers where a robbery took place in a department store, though Nancy led the cops to her secret basement and saved everyone. The exes are electrified and he hoped Ace would help, but George notes that he's busy and Jesse is with him. She gives him the rubber mats from the car to insulate the charge. He thinks it's a great idea, but if it doesn't work, they can scale the building. Excuse me. Inside, Nick tells Nancy that Tamora is getting worse. Macy tells him that she saw Dolores and Brendan fighting outside the restaurant. She told him earlier she's afraid of him. He claims he tried to help her. Ryan gives Nancy a statement with Dolores' mom saying she doesn't smoke or drink but loves flowers. Arbiter asks if she believes Brendan and she doesn't. Arbiter's watching a pizza being delivered to 404 Guilford Lane, which is Fraser's family home. There's read everyone and Nancy asks Brandon what happened while Ryan restrains him. Brendan admits to having dated Dolores. Nancy asking if he was married during that time. He went to Dolores and threatened to tell his wife. He wanted to see his point of view, but she just left. So I picked him up from the bar so he has an alibi. Tamora collapses and barely has a pulse. Carson, Bess, and George try to break in, but the mat rips in half. Nancy begs the arbiter to let Tamora have medical attention, promising to get justice for Dolores, but she won't if someone dies. Arbiter complies and the power goes off. Nancy rushes over to find Carson, Bess, and George. She tells everyone to bring Tamora out of the building first. Nick looks at the last thing Tamora wrote down and shows Nancy a flower-shaped topaz earring was found at the station and was on Dolores. Nancy tells Carson to trust her one more time and closes the door, telling the arbiter to rearm everything. She says that someone she knows died and is lying, so they aren't leaving until she figures it out. She says that she's the arbiter now. Hampton tells Nancy she's an accomplice, and Nancy tells her to arrest her then. She then tells him about the earring and it was logged before it was torn out. She asks Ryan if he remembers seeing her, but doesn't remember as he walked home at midnight. She shows her report and says he was released at 8 a.m. The round says someone faked their records so Ryan wouldn't see what happened. Tamora calls to say that he has access to DMV records, which showed she was pulled over that night. Fraser arrests her and Nancy asks why. He must have gotten a call from Mitzi about a black woman driving erratically, had a lot of cash on her, and was probably a drug dealer. When he pulled Dolores over, he let her go when he learned the truth. He didn't want to out Mitzi as a racist. She tells Nancy that the police did something to the girl. Hampton threatened that if it got out that she called the police to weaponize against a black person, it would be all over the internet. Hampton claims Mitzi misunderstood her. Nick realizes Hampton was on guard duty that night with Dolores. Asks Ryan if the sound were pipes moaning or not, to which she explains it could have been high-pitched crying. Ryan asks Hampton what she did to her. Nick intervenes to beg her to tell the truth. She states that Fraser brought her in that way, and if she didn't cover for him, her career would be over. Dolores was holding her head, sobbing and begging for help. Hampton wanted to call a doctor, but Fraser wouldn't let her. Dolores had a seizure in front of them as she had brain bleeding. They panted through her car into a ravine and her body in the ocean. Ryan is in disbelief disbelief that the cops did that. Henton kept the dash footage of Fraser hitting Dolores' head against the dashboard and after cuffing her. He screams it was an accident. She was resisting. Didn't know she was terrified because they were always terrified. Nancy points out that Brandon harassed her, Mitzi humiliated her, and Fraser pulled her over without probable cause, terrified and assaulted her, while Hampton left her to die alone. They covered up their murder. She asked the arbiter if they got all of that, and the powers went off again. Nick goes to the crime board when Nancy walks over and asks if she's okay, but he isn't. Asks if he's Nancy walks over and asks if he's okay, but he isn't. Forensics removes the cameras, while Ryan asks Nancy who the arbiter is, but she doesn't know. He tells her that he's proud of her for getting justice for Dolores. He remarks that it's 12 down and 1 to go. Nancy hears church bells and goes to a local church where she talks to a reverend. She asks someone to say a prayer for Dolores. Her mother died last week, but Linda never stopped trying to find what happened. Nancy knows that the earring was found by a chaplain who found the earring the night Dolores went missing and still administers his services. Nancy asks the Reverend if she has a confession to make. The Reverend asks how long it will be until the authorities arrive, but Nancy didn't tell them about her. The woman explains that she saw the photo of Dolores wearing the earring, and the police claim someone else found it. She prayed for justice, and then Dolores' mother died last week, so she made the justice happen herself. She did pressure for a confession, finally had the chance when Nancy was being arrested. She was an engineer, so rigging everything was simple. She started that tumor is hurt, but Nancy assures her that he'll be fine and is about to go into surgery. The Reverend asks why she would counter the testimony, but Nancy doesn't know who she is anymore. Reverend tells her that one's choices tell the world who they are and asks what Nancy's will say about her. At the Claw, May can't find Mary Clark as she's moved on. After Odette died, she found a great love again, had a full life, and died old age surrounded by family. Odette was only a small part of her long story. Odette thinks she's lying as she died with Mary's name in her heart. George apologizes to her, but Odette leaves. Bess thinks of her trying and gives them time alone. George apologized for not visiting May, but she didn't want her last memory of her to be sick with tubes. May assures that she didn't come to scold her, and she does that herself. May assures her as she died surrounded by family and love, George's love. He lives with her and always will. She takes George's hand and tells her that she read all the clippings about her life and sisters. She commends her for that and says she's proud of her. She's scared for her now that she's tangled with Odette. She shows that her palm is changing as her lifeline is matching Odette's. If she doesn't find to sever that connection, she'll die sooner than she's supposed to. They hug and May leaves Ace's body. He heard what May said about her life, and she asks him not to tell anyone she doesn't want to ruin Nancy's party. Carson, Nick, and George set the home when Tamura comes on TV. He plans to eradicate the racism and injustice that led to Dolores' death. They have a lot of work to do, but that work begins today. George comforts him as they hug tightly. Bess leaves and Nancy arrives a bit later. He knows there wasn't supposed to be a party, but she's ready for pie. They take a photo. He asks why they chose November 19th, to which Carson reveals that Kay loved Abraham Lincoln, and that's the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. They named Nancy after his mother. Going to phrase about a better angel, Carson says that's who Nancy was to them. She leaves to get changed. Once upstairs, she breaks her crying on the bed and tears down her crime board with her achievements and clippings. She writes Justice next to Everett's name and crosses out the word jail. Oh boy. So let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. The sub establishes Nancy's legal birthday as November 19th, 2000, as Kate was a fan of Abraham Lincoln. Her birthday marked the 137th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. Carson sees that Twisted Candles is a code name for one of Nancy's old cases involving a hostage situation. The term may have originated from the 1933 Nancy Drew book titled The Sign of the Twisted Candles. Linda Sue Taylor live tweeted throughout the episode from the Nancy Drew writer's Twitter account. Lisa Bow also tweeted from the Nancy Drew writer's Twitter account. Andrea Thornton Bolden also tweeted from the Nancy Drew writer's Twitter account. The idea to name Nancy after Lincoln's mother came from Lincoln enthusiast Scott Wolf, and the show timeline for November 2019. And it happens that November 19th is when Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. The Better Angels of Our Nature was in his first inaugural speech. Huh. So overall, I like this episode, and yeah, I do feel kind of upset about what happened to Dolores and everything. So yeah, and also for what's going on with Nancy as well. So yeah. So overall, I give The Siege of the Unseen Specter 5 Deerstalkers out of 5. Anyway, tune in as we took the final episode of the day, The Celestial Visitor. So until then, remember everyone, the game's afoot.